partner in Jamaica's diplomatic and economic ambitions. Mr. Speaker, I was joined by a delegation that included Senator the Honorable Kamina Johnson-Smith, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Senator the Honorable Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon, Minister without portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for information, skills, and digital transformation, along with technical communications and other personnel from the Office of the Prime Minister and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I want to express my deep gratitude to the Government of India for the excellent arrangements made for my visit. Mr. Speaker, the Indian diaspora in Jamaica was well represented and well received. My advisor, Mr. Alak Jan, and two other prominent members of the Indian diaspora accompanied the delegation. Mr. Dushant Savadia, founder and CEO of the Amber Group, who is also an Ambassador Special Investment Envoy for Technology, and Mr. Kenny Benjamin, founder and executive chairman of the Guardsman Group. Both Mr. Savadia and Mr. Benjamin covered their own travel and accommodation costs. Mr. Speaker, the visit to India was long awaited and without question historic for two reasons. First, our relationship with India is deeply rooted in history, dating back to 1845, when the first Indians arrived on our shores. The Indian community has since woven itself into the fabric of Jamaican life, contributing to our food, music, culture, economy, and our politics. This visit was a powerful recognition of those enduring bonds and a step towards strengthening them for future cooperation. Second, India has over the last decade in particular emerged as a global economic and geopolitical power. With a population of 1.4 billion, India is not only the world's largest democracy, but also the fastest growing large economy in the world. India's GDP grew by an impressive 8.2% in fiscal 2024 and is projected to grow by 6.8% in 2025. On this growth trajectory, India is poised to become the world's third largest economy within the next 5 years. India's rising influence was evident during its presidency of the G20 in 2023 under the theme, One Earth, One Family, One Future. India championed the inclusion of the African Union as a permanent member, a major win for developing nations, including Jamaica. India also spearheaded the Voice of the Global South series of summits in which Jamaica participated, amplifying the concerns and perspectives of developing countries. This leadership role highlights India's commitment to ensuring that the voice of smaller nations like Jamaica are heard in global decision-making fora. Mr. Speaker, during the official visit, the delegation Dankar and other government officials and business leaders. The discussion highlighted the similarities that unite our two nations. Like Jamaica, India is a vibrant democracy grounded in the principles of freedom, the rule of law, and respect for human rights. Both Jamaica and India share a proud heritage as members of the Commonwealth nations, with similar legal systems based in English common law. Mr. Speaker, there was a recognition that this common ground strengthens our capacity for collaboration on issues of global governance, peace, and economic development. In fact, Prime Minister Modi characterized the common bond in terms of the four C's: culture, the Commonwealth, CARICOM, and cricket. On that note, I must mention that we were fortunate to have Chris Gale, the universe boss, as he's known. He was with us for some of our engagements. Mr. Speaker, his popularity in India is truly astounding. And he made a special gesture, Mr. Speaker. He signed a cricket bat, which I presented to Prime Minister Modi, and Prime Minister Modi was so very impressed with the gift. I took the opportunity, as we speak about cricket, Mr. Speaker, I took the opportunity to thank Prime Minister Modi for India's support for the lighting project at Sabina Park through a grant of $2.1 million a few years ago, and an electronic scoreboard, which is on its way. Our discussion touched on a range of issues of mutual interest, including trade and investment, health, agriculture, digital transformation, film, education, security, sports, and tourism. Mr. Speaker, on trade and investment, India's growing economy presents immense opportunities. Both nations committed to increasing trade and investment, particularly in agriculture, manufacturing, and technology. Jamaica's strategic location offers Indian businesses an ideal near-shore hub to access markets in the USA, Canada, and Latin America, and the Caribbean. And in return, India represents a large export market for Jamaican products like Blue Mountain coffee, aged rums and liqueurs, very popular in India. But the largest opportunity, Mr. Speaker, is tourism. And the Minister of Tourism will be visiting India in a few weeks from now to further build upon. Well, he hasn't been to India. To be fair to the minister, he hasn't been to India. So, as a follow-on as to what we have kind of laid the groundwork for in India, the minister will be going now to sink deep roots in India to get greater tourism from India to Jamaica. In agriculture, we discussed the sharing of knowledge and best practices in critical areas such as mechanization. But I tell you, Mr. Speaker, the most important discussion in agriculture that we had was on affordable irrigation. India has some amazing technology in affordable irrigation. And we also discussed advanced seed technologies and expertise in crop development, agro-processing, as well as investment facilitation and credit support. What I particularly like about the Indian agricultural technology is that they rely heavily on using natural solutions, nature-based solutions, particularly in pest control and enhancing crop productivity. And I think Jamaican farmers would quickly embrace those technologies. In healthcare and medical tourism, we explored how Jamaica's world-renowned tourism industry and India's expertise in healthcare can collaborate to create a thriving medical tourism sector benefiting both nations. Mr. Speaker, if the story is ever really told about Jamaica's investment history, it would be recorded the several missed opportunities that we had as a country. One of them would have been an Indian investment in medical tourism, which went to a neighboring country. And we keep missing these opportunities, which would have made us a stronger economy today, Mr. Speaker. we are not intending on missing any more of those opportunities. We are going to create them. We are laying the foundation for them to be developed, nurtured, and grown. Mr. Speaker, India is one of the largest manufacturer and exporter of pharmaceuticals in the world, with an industry valued at over US $50 billion, supplying almost all countries in the world. Jamaica is exploring strategic partnerships with India to improve the supply and affordability of quality pharmaceuticals for the Jamaican people, thereby reducing the cost of healthcare in Jamaica. Mr. Speaker, we spoke extensively about digital transformation. India's pioneering role in what is called the digital public infrastructure, particularly its biometric national ID and digital payment systems, were of keen interest to us. India launched its biometric national ID program, the Aadhaar, in 2009. By 2023, over 1.3 billion individuals had been enrolled. The population is 1.4. They have enrolled since 2009. 1.3 billion persons on a biometric national ID system. While we are here fighting and wasting time, 1.3 billion people are uniquely identified and are able to access the benefits that technology creates. This extensive reach has been instrumental in catalyzing the largest, most successful financial inclusion program in the world. Globally, Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's time for speaking having expired, I beg to move that it be extended sufficiently to allow him to complete the statement.
It will be expeditious, Mr. Speaker.
The request is on the floor that we give the Prime Minister enough time. Those in favor?
Thank
The
you, Mr.
ayes have
Speaker.
it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members. I assure members I will be expeditious in the delivery of the presentation. The extensive reach of this identification system has been instrumental in catalyzing the largest, most successful financial inclusion program globally, with 500 million new bank accounts opened since its inception. And imagine that, Mr. Speaker, Jamaica's population is 3 million. They have 500 million persons with bank accounts, individuals. India has also created a unified payment interface, which is of great interest to us, which is the foundation of one of the most successful digital payment systems in the world, and now accounts for 15 billion transactions per month. 15 billion transactions per month. This has facilitated the efficient transfer of government subsidies and benefits, significantly reducing leakages of those transfers and ensuring resources reach the intended beneficiaries. Let me put it in another way, Mr. Speaker. India has used this unified payment interface and their digital public infrastructure and their national ID system to increase public social safety net payments like the path payments. They don't stand up in line to receive their path payments. Because of this unified payment interface, it comes to their phone. Now imagine a population of 1.4 billion people spread out all over to be able to serve the poor and reach all the extremes and far areas. How difficult it would be. But technology has brought everyone closer together. It has cut transaction times, increased convenience, but most importantly, under the old system, there was no way to uniquely identify someone who was in need. So there was a large number of double counting. So some persons would get 2 or 3 path benefits, if I were to use that description, when they should only get 1. But with a uniquely identified system, there is no way to beat that system anymore. So not only is it more convenient, but more persons are being served because there is less leakage in the system. And what has caused that? Technology. Right now, Mr. Speaker, they were explaining how they are increasing benefits to include more farmers on their social safety net, which is something that Jamaica needs to do with our PATH program. Because one of the complaints of the PATH program is not reaching the person who should really get it. There's a lot of leakage, double counting, but most importantly, it pains my heart when I pass the post offices and the postal agencies and see the long lines and people standing up to collect their PATH payments. In today's world, we can eliminate that by putting in place a well-structured, unified payment interface. So, Mr. Speaker, we signed a memorandum of understanding which will see cooperation in the field of sharing successful digital public infrastructure aimed at promoting financial inclusion and social and economic transformation. And secondly, on exploring the implementation of a UPI-like digital payment system in Jamaica. eGov Jamaica will now move forward with implementation, and in the case of the digital payments, that will be led by the Bank of Jamaica. Mr. Speaker, when we talk about the digital public infrastructure, we have already started on this path, and we are already enabling services on this digital infrastructure. You know, I give you the perfect example of how this infrastructure helps. Mr. Speaker, you know, there was a great hue and cry complaint about the processing time at our airports. Because we have invested through the national identification system and we have put in what is called the key public infrastructure, we were able to put in place the digital kiosks that enable electronic passport recognition and the use of these Easy Pass kiosks at the airport that speeds up clearing at the airport. And more of this is to come, which will improve service delivery for the average Jamaican seeking to access public or even private services. And this is only possible because we have started to make the investments in this public digital infrastructure. Our cooperation with India is to catalyze it and to make it much more widely available. Mr. Speaker, education and skills. India, as the world moves deeper into the 4th industrial revolution, Jamaica must continue to invest in education and skills development, particularly in STEM. India's expertise in STEM and innovation presents valuable opportunities for collaboration. Discussions focused on opportunities for recruitment and training of STEM teachers, as well as how Jamaica can benefit from India's experience in equipping its workforce with the skills needed for the digital age. Mr. Speaker, we discussed film. Discussions included the possibility of Indian filmmakers from Bollywood collaborating with our growing film industry in Jamaica, particularly because, Mr. Speaker, the government has put $1 billion Jamaican dollars into a film fund. So the possibilities now exist for collaborative efforts between Indian filmmakers and Jamaican filmmakers on areas of common interest. You know, it's not far-fetched to see a documentary on cricket. That would be a massive and important cinematographic work if it can be done. We could also see films on the Indian diaspora in Jamaica. So there are great possibilities here that should be explored. Tourism, as I had mentioned, Mr. Speaker, we have had discussions on those, and as I had mentioned, the minister will be going to India. And Mr. Speaker, on sports, we focused on Jamaica's prowess in track and field and India's success in cricket and chess, and we signed a memorandum of understanding which would see cooperation in those areas, particularly the exchange of coaches. We had some additional meetings, Mr. Speaker. Minister Johnson Smith and Minister Dana Morris Dixon spent an additional day for important meetings which focused on their respective areas. Minister Johnson Smith met with the Dean of the Sushma Sarwaj Foreign Service Institute of India to discuss joint curriculum development and training courses in building on the MOU that was signed in 2020 with the ultimate aim of developing a foreign service institute in Jamaica. Minister Morris Dixon and other members of the delegation met with the Unique Identification Authority of India, the National Payments Corporation of India, and the National Institute of Electronics and Information Technology, which included a visit to an AI lab. Further discussions are underway regarding a partnership between the National Institute of Electronics and Information Technology and the Heart Trust NTA, including setting up one or more AI labs, that is artificial intelligence labs, in Jamaica. Mr. Speaker, while in India, I officially opened the Indian High Commission in New Delhi. The resident mission has been operational since 2020, and the official opening had been planned for April 2020 when I was originally scheduled to visit. Mr. Speaker, the road in front of the High Commission was renamed Jamaica Marg or Jamaica Road. This is a profound symbol of the enduring friendship between Jamaica and India. Jamaica Marg will forever stand as a reminder of the strong bonds that unite us and the potential for even greater collaboration in the years ahead. I extend heartfelt congratulations or gratitude to Prime Minister Modi and the government of India for this gracious gesture, which strengthens our partnership and elevates Jamaica's presence in India. I also had the opportunity to tour India's new Parliament building, which was inaugurated in 2023. The state-of-the-art structure stands as a testament to India's democratic strength, growth, and its forward-looking vision for the future. I was particularly struck by the fact that it was fully paperless. It was a paperless parliament. I was particularly struck, as I said, that it was a paperless parliament, but it embraced all digital technologies that could enhance the function of the parliament. The new parliament stands in contrast to the old colonial era building, which had outlived its useful life, and is a powerful symbol of the shift from India's colonial past to its vibrant, independent future. Mr. Speaker, I left the Indian Parliament with a renewed inspiration and determination to move forward with our own parliament. Mr. Speaker, October 2nd is a national holiday in India, celebrated annually to commemorate the birth of Mahatma Gandhi and the values of truth and nonviolence that he represented. I had the honor to pay homage to him by laying a wreath and planting a tree at the Rajghat, his final resting place. I also had the opportunity to visit the sacred and historical sites of Saranath and Varanasi. Varanasi, which is the Prime Minister's constituency, Prime Minister Modi's constituency, is one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world, dating back to 1200 BC. Mr. Speaker, as a small island developing state, forging global partnerships is essential to Jamaica's development. This official visit to India, the first by a Jamaican Prime Minister, was a resounding success and marks the beginning of a new era in Jamaica-India relations. India, as one of the world's fastest growing economies and a leader on the global stage, offers Jamaica immense opportunities. And this visit has unlocked the doors to deepening our partnership and strengthening our cooperation in years ahead. Mr. Speaker, my administration sees foreign policy as an important exercise to ensure our international and global political interests are served multilaterally and bilaterally. However, my administration believes that foreign policy is also a powerful instrument for the promotion of our economic interests. In the past era, in which some still reside, the measure of a successful trip would be a readout of grants and gifts. It is always good to secure those. However, the era in which this administration has moved Jamaica is that of seeking our economic independence to secure our growth and prosperity as a nation. Jamaica's growth and prosperity in this era of the fourth industrial revolution, of cyber, of artificial intelligence, of STEM, will depend heavily on how fast we can integrate technology in our economy and society, not only as consumers of the technology, but as producers of technology. India and other countries, developing countries, they face the same development challenges as we do. However, they have charted a pathway of solutions that can be customized to our specific conditions. We are crafting a South-South partnership with India to accelerate our technological advancement to support our economic development. What does this mean for the average Jamaican? This trip will aid Jamaica's push to cut the time it takes to conduct financial transactions. We really should commission a study to see the time that Jamaicans lose standing in line in banks, at the tax office, at all the other places where they have to get served by public institutions. Technology can eliminate that. This trip will aid Jamaica's push to cut the time it takes to conduct financial transactions, the time it takes in bank lines, the time to collect the path payment, or to do business with government. Our partnerships with India will also result in great training opportunities for our young people in tech, cyber, and artificial intelligence. This is where the jobs of the future will be. This trip has great meaning and value for the average Jamaican. I want to place on record in this honorable house my profound gratitude to Prime Minister Modi and the people of India for their warm hospitality and their commitment to forging stronger ties with Jamaica. As we navigate an increasingly complex global landscape, the partnership between Jamaica and India will be key to unlocking new opportunities for growth, development, and cultural exchange. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me thank the Prime Minister for giving an update on his trip to India. In fact, when I spoke in the sectoral debate, one of the things that I said was that it is time to ensure that our foreign affairs is not foreign to the everyday Jamaican. And so I want to thank you for the in-depth presentation that you have made in terms of the update on this particular visit. What this allows when we have this kind of discussion and when we enumerate and reiterate what these cooperations and discussions entail, it brings it a little closer to the Jamaican people. So along that same vein, I would love to see, Prime Minister, that we have something similar coming before us as a parliament in terms of our collaboration through the Afro-Exim Bank, for example, and what we're doing with CARICOM, so that not just a few, but the everyday Jamaican can sit at home and hear a presentation similar to this in these other two areas. But let's talk about the meat of what you spoke about, which is what the discussions were in India. There is absolutely no doubt that we have shared a long history with India. We know the days of indentured servants between 1845 and 1917, right, as the foundation. In fact, well do we know that Norman Manley was actually inspired by the philosophies of Mahatma Gandhi. And that has been no secret. So from way back, I want to applaud some of what you have placed on the table in terms of areas of collaboration, in particular in terms of the digital divide, the tourism and cultural exchange, film, and all of that. Prime Minister, it struck me as I listened and read, trying to do both at the same time and to internalize, that although it was mentioned peripherally that we did not get the kind of in-depth, I don't know if it was part of the discussion or if it is the second round of the discussion or if that is to come. We heard about using technology in government and all of those other things which are needed and which are to be lauded, let's be clear. But when I think of India and when I think of Jamaica, I'm not looking for gifts. I'm not looking for gifts. But what I am looking for is to see how we can forge a partnership and a collaboration that moves the young Jamaican.
Wix gives you the power of AI to build the website you need with full business functionality and a design tailored just for you. Customize every element of your website and watch your vision come to life in minutes. Control everything.
In education. I'd love to hear, Prime Minister, how I'd love to hear and see collaboration with our academic institutions, yes, about programs. It is very good to talk about the Foreign Service Institute, a very good one, and that's good. I'd love to see that broadened to take in more of our educational institutions in terms of what can be done in terms of collaboration between India and Jamaica. I'd love to see how we could leverage, for example, their experience in bringing, and you said it, we have started in bringing the digital age as commonplace, especially to underserved communities, in a strategic way that looks 5, 10 years down the line to see where individuals in our underserved and rural communities, where they are in this new digital age. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. Because, Prime Minister, you spoke about what we could do in tech, cyber and AI. But let us also see how we can do the foundation of that education that is going to be required for that to be done. I think I had one other note that I wanted to add. Those are particularly the things that I'd like to see, Minister. And I am hoping that we continue with this kind of, with the discussions that have started so that they can bear fruit. But as I said, I'd love to see an expansion or at the very least, more discussion around the opportunity that I see. I want to laud in particular the collaboration with film in particular. Jamaica is well known worldwide.
Remember, I thought you were wrapping up a while ago, so I give. So another minute.
I was ending, Mr. Speaker, by saying that I liked the venture in terms of film because Jamaica is known as a country with a very strong theater background. But I don't think that we have made the mark in film as we could have with that kind of a strong grounding in theater. And that would have been my last one.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank the member for her intervention and to reassure her that the Minister of Foreign Affairs does deliver in the Senate quite extensive presentations on the various trips, particularly for CARICOM. When I go on trips, Mr. Speaker, I do try to make a presentation, particularly official visits. In this particular case, this official visit was more than just a courtesy. It was to develop a strategic partnership for our economic development. And a critical linchpin in that strategy is the upskilling of the Jamaican labor force to become a labor force that can garner high wages by virtue of high productivity. We have been criticized as a low growth, low wage economy. And, maybe that's just a phase we are in the development. But we can easily rise from this if we are instrumental and strategic and deliberate in what we're doing. So this administration, Mr. Speaker, is focusing on moving Jamaica into the next era of our development. The last era of our development, which we managed and managed well, was to develop fiscal certainty. The ability from our own resources to manage shocks, plan for future events, finance our activities. And we must make that a cornerstone that can't change. But the next phase of our development, the new era, must be to focus on innovation, to focus on upskilling our workforce. It is the human element of the development equation. How do we get our people to increase productivity, increase innovation, and create more value? India had that same challenge 40 years ago, and they took deliberate steps to create their Institute of Technology, for example, which today they benefit from having probably the largest technically competent workforce, which supplies tech all over Jamaica, all over the world. Silicon Valley, wherever you go, they are renowned. We can benefit from that kind of training, that kind of technology, and we are striking up a partnership. So one of the MOUs and one of the discussions that we have had in India is with the, as I've said, the National Institute of Electronics and Information Technology, the NILIT. And this will possibly result in the development of an AI lab. And the partnership is with HEART. So HEART is very good at the technical and vocational subject areas. What we want to do now is to move HEART into the technology, artificial intelligence, the coding. And we have started that with the Amber Heart Institute, training over 100 coders every year. Now we want to scale that up because we really need to have in Jamaica 10,000 or more data scientists, persons who are skilled in this field, in order, analysts, yes, in order to support the next level of the global services industry, which we have been relying on for the last 10 years. So we have to make these kinds of strategic steps. So all of what is here, Mr. Speaker, to some they can't see the vision. They don't understand it. And I understand they don't understand. But for those who understand it, they know that what we have managed to do with this partnership and this visit is not just diplomacy, but strategic economic policy. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister, I join my colleague in thanking you for the in-depth presentation that you have done that gave us a real sense of the objectives and the mission and the objective and the goals that this particular visit had. Just a few questions I want to ask. First of all, let me comment on the Foreign Service Institute, which is a long-standing project, and I'm glad to see movement from India in that. We've had movement in other direction, but I think the movement from India is particularly helpful because of the common history and the future that I believe we'll have together going forward. I'm glad to see it again in the context of an evolved South-South cooperation, because that is indeed critical to our future, especially in a technologically driven world, the fourth industrial revolution. I agree that the upskilling of the reimagining of heart is very crucial, and that India has a role to play in that reimagining of heart and the workforce development. But two quick questions, Prime Minister. You mentioned trade and investment. Did that discussion involve a potential trade and investment agreement with India? Because I believe that that sort of legal certainty is what is needed to make trade happen and investment happen. Not just in the discussion or even the policy, but the legal certainty that underpins these critical arrangements is what makes trade and investment happen. So I'd like to know if that discussion went in that direction and where we are in setting that foundation, because it is one that needs to happen, and the sooner the better. The next question I'd like to ask is, will we see a tabling in this House of the actual agreements? Because we've had visits where there's been no discussion in this House or agreements tabled in this House. I'd like to think, because I think those are important, and although we don't have the arrangement where you have to get prior approval, I think even post-discussion and those agreements are critical. And so I'd like to know if they be tabled in this House. Thank you.
Because there's another statement. So to answer your last question first, as long as we clear with our partners that they have no objections to the release of the MOUs, we have no problems in releasing the MOUs. And so I will ask the Minister of Foreign Affairs to have them properly tabled. In terms of the discussion on trade, it's the initial phase. And so, yes, if there are, for example, what you call dual taxation treaties and so forth, all of those things would be discussed. Anything to ease trade would be discussed. But I also wanted to point out that we focus directly with businesses. We met with Indian businesses who have an interest in Jamaica. So yes, so in addition to looking at the legal requirements and the institutional requirements to facilitate trade, we actually met with persons who are starting investments here, considering investing here, or who are just exploring investments in Jamaica. And that particular meeting with the Indian Institute of Commerce was very successful. Mr. Speaker, members, I thank you.
Speaker, I respectfully move that you invite the Prime Minister to make the second statement.
Mr. Prime Minister, you're so advised. Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The copies of the statements will be with us momentarily. If you will allow me to begin, if members will allow me to begin while the statements make their way into the chamber. Thank you for that indulgence. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to update this Honorable House on the progress of the government's flagship infrastructure initiative, the SPARK program, that is the Shared Prosperity Through Accelerated Improvement to our road network. Progress. Mr. Speaker, this government understands how eagerly the people of Jamaica have been waiting for this initiative, as it marks the beginning of our efforts to address the deterioration of our road network, especially our community roads. This government understands that our roads are not just about vehicles, they are about people. Roads that connect farmers to markets, students to schools, and patients to hospitals. The SPARK project represents one of the largest investments in Jamaica's road and water infrastructure in recent history. And its successful execution is critical to our nation's growth and development. By improving access to essential services and boosting productivity, it will contribute to better economic and social outcomes and enhance the quality of life of our citizens. Mr. Speaker, SPARK was first introduced in the fiscal year 2023-2024 as a $40 billion road improvement initiative. Since then, it has grown to include an additional $5 billion for water line improvements. The project will also install fiber optic ducts to support future broadband connectivity, which aligns with the government's digital transformation strategy. This infrastructure will connect public institutions, improve the delivery of shared services, and eventually enable e-government services for the Jamaican people. While some may not yet fully grasp the scope of this transformation, soon everyone will experience the significant changes that will happen. Mr. Speaker, SPARK is divided into two major components. First, Part A, with an allocation of 20 billion Jamaican dollars, will focus on the rehabilitation and reconstruction of local, parochial, and community roads. These are roads that have suffered from surface deterioration, poor drainage, and structural issues. Secondly, under this component, we will address pavement resurfacing drainage issues, intersection and sidewalk improvements, as well as constructing retaining walls where needed to prevent landslides and improve road safety. Mr. Speaker, this road improvement project has involved widespread public participation through consultations at the divisional level in each constituency. Allocation is based on a fair and equitable basis, and every constituency will benefit. The second part of the program, Part B, is also allocated $20 billion, and it will target more complex road networks. This component focuses on major roads that require structural upgrades, installation of modern drainage systems, and the inclusion of water infrastructure and fiber optic ducts. These upgrades will support our effort to create a digitally connected Jamaica ready to meet the demands of a modern economy. Works will be coordinated with the National Water Commission to prevent the need for road excavation in the future, improving cost efficiency and reducing duplications in public works. So you see, Mr. Speaker, the SPARK program is also a SMART program. When we spend this $20 billion in the first phase and the other $20 billion in the second phase, plus the $5 billion for water pipes, when we lay down those carpets, there must be no reason to take them up back. Mr. Speaker, the government of Jamaica is committed to ensuring that this project is executed with the utmost transparency and accountability. To that end, we embarked on the international competitive bidding process earlier this year, which saw 5 bidders submitting proposals for 4 construction packages under the SPARK project. The process was conducted in line with international best practices to ensure we attracted the best contractors from both local and international firms. Following the evaluation of the bids, 1 contractor emerged as the preferred bidder for all 4 packages. Their technical scores were the highest, and their bid pricing was competitive. In response to these higher than expected bids, the government of Jamaica negotiating team, which includes representatives from the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development, the National Water Commission and the National Works Agency, engaged in several rounds of negotiations to reduce the overall contract price. These negotiations were necessary to ensure that we are receiving the best value for money while still achieving the scope and quality of work required. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to report that the negotiation process has been successful, resulting in a reduction of the total contract price. Additionally, negotiations regarding the waterline works component of the SPARK project were also completed with the preferred bidder and the Government of Jamaica negotiating team, agreeing to a suitable price for the $2 billion budgeted for the waterline components. The NWC, responsible for procuring the necessary materials for all projects. Well, the NWC will be responsible for procuring the necessary materials for all projects. This approach will allow for a more streamlined execution of the waterline works and road improvements. Mr. Speaker, in recent days, there has been considerable debate regarding the perceived sidelining of local contractors and the potential impact on the industry. As such, I would like to clarify the role of local contractors in the SPARK project. SPARK will be implemented island-wide and is expected to engage several local contractors as subcontractors, bringing significant benefits to the local construction industry, including job creation and skills development. However, it is important to note that the selection of these subcontractors will be made by the main contractor in accordance with the terms and conditions of the main contract. While the government will exercise its statutory role to ensure fair wages, labor conditions, and compliance with health and safety standards, the principle of privity of contract must be respected. The contract is with the main contractor, and it is the contractor that the government will look for or will hold accountable for the timely project delivery and quality of work. Though concerns have been raised about the performance of local contractors, I want to emphasize that the government that I lead has strong confidence in our local construction industry. We can always improve, but I believe that we have enough skills, competencies here for our local contractors to participate effectively in the Spark program. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the Spark project is not just about upgrading roads, it's about transforming the lives of people. Better roads mean better travel, reduce transportation costs, and improve access to jobs, education, and healthcare. It means that farmers in rural communities will be able to get their produce to market more efficiently. It means that businesses can thrive because goods and services can move more freely across the island. And importantly, it means that we are laying the groundwork for a digitally connected Jamaica with the integration of fiber optics in our road infrastructure. We are not just building roads, we are building a better future for Jamaica. Yes, Mr. Speaker, we are sparking prosperity for Jamaica. Mr. Speaker, I would also like to provide an update on the implementation of the REACH Road Rehabilitation Program, which was initiated in response to the widespread road damage caused by Hurricane Beryl earlier this year. After the completion of the procurement process and delays due to weeks of heavy rains, I am pleased to report that work has now begun under the program. Currently, patching efforts are underway across various constituencies, and these activities will be significantly escalated in the coming days to address the backlog of repairs. The phased nature of the program remains as previously outlined, with each constituency allocated $20 million for the necessary roadworks, including pothole patching, small-scale rehabilitation, and minor drain improvements. The National Works Agency is actively overseeing the implementation to ensure.
With Zeem, you can stream local news, sports, and events from all over the country. Zeem, always local, always free.
Dryland individuals can also earn on uninvested money.
Mr. Speaker, this $3 billion program is necessary and essential to provide greater well-being for our commuting public. While we welcome this progress, we must also acknowledge that there will be some unavoidable disruptions to traffic flows as the work intensifies. I therefore appeal to the commuting public for their patience and understanding, as these inconveniences will result in much improved road conditions.
We will allow you.
The Prime Minister's time for speaking having expired, I beg to move that it be extended by 5 minutes to allow completion of his presentation.
The request is, and those in favor, ayes have it. Mr. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I do hear the cry of the commuting public that it seems as if the contractors who are given the job to repair the roads decide to repair the roads in peak hours. It's a complaint that has been made to me on several occasions. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm using this forum to direct the minister without portfolio who has direct oversight on these particular matters to ensure that the contractors who are doing the patching exercise some amount of discretion in the time that they choose to do these roadworks, Mr. Speaker. I'm giving that publicly as a directive to the minister. So I urge all members of Parliament to continue working closely with the National Work Agency to ensure that the program is executed within the timelines established and that we maximize the impact of every dollar allocated for this essential work. I raise the point, Mr. Speaker, because we have allocated by constituency $20 million, $10 million to the end of the year and another $10 billion in the beginning of next year. But if the MPs don't send in their work schedule and programs on a timely basis, the citizens can't feel the benefit. And therefore, I'm encouraging members to please, as quickly as you can, send in your work program to the NWA. Mr. Speaker, I know that Jamaicans are eager to know if their road will be selected for improvement under the Spark program. Some may be disappointed if their communities are not included in this phase of Spark. However, we have worked hard to make the project as fair and equitable as possible. Spark has been the most consultative road improvement initiative in the nation's history. Through town hall meetings, the Spark program actively sought input from residents, ensuring that their voices were heard in making the priorities for the roads to be fixed. This inclusive approach has not only fostered greater transparency and accountability, but also ensured that the program targets areas with the highest impact on daily life, economic activity, and safety. Under each component, whether main roads or local roads, every constituency will benefit. For constituencies with more roads, they will receive additional allocations based on the length of the roads that they have. In the coming days, the government will engage a public relations firm to launch the public awareness campaign for Spark. Citizens will be informed about which roads have been selected for improvement and other key project details, helping to manage public expectations. As we prepare to enter the construction phase of the Spark project, we are committed to carrying out the work with efficiency and professionalism, ensuring minimal disruption to the daily lives of our citizens. Mr. Speaker, the Spark project is a vital part of our national development strategy, and I am confident that its successful execution will bring about lasting benefits for our people. I wish to assure this Honourable House that the government remains fully committed to ensuring that this project is delivered on time within budget and to the highest standards of quality. The road ahead will require continued focus and collaboration between all stakeholders, and I look forward to updating this House as we continue to make progress on this critical national project, which is expected to commence is expected to start in this quarter. Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I would like to close by thanking the members of the government's negotiating team, the various ministries and agencies involved for their hard work and dedication to ensuring the successful delivery of the Spark program. I also want to thank the Jamaican people for their patience and understanding as we work to improve the infrastructure that supports their daily lives. Mr. Speaker, the Spark program is the first totally government-sponsored program, government-funded program to focus on the rehabilitation of our road network. I make the point as I close, Mr. Speaker. We have been experiencing bad road conditions for over 40 years. It is not just yesterday that Jamaica has had bad roads. We were promised pothole-free from 2003. I am not in any way criticizing a genuine promise that was made, a genuine aspiration, because it's an aspiration. And there is nothing wrong with the aspiration. But, Mr. Speaker, we must recognize the difference between a dream and a vision. When you dream, you do that with your eyes closed. But when you give people a vision, it is with your eyes open. You can see the pathway. So when we make the commitment that we are going to finally deal with bad roads in Jamaica, we put together a program, we give it the institutional support, and we identify the financing. It won't happen with the snap of a finger, as others would like to promise you that by tomorrow all your bad roads are going to be fixed. There is no such thing. What you have to do is make sure that you have the budget first. Then you make sure you have the institutions to manage it. Then you find the contractors to do it. And then you have the supervision and oversight to carry it through. Once you have that in place, then you have now an institutional solution that will last you for decades and will ensure that your roads are improved. And that is what we are doing with Spark. So, Mr. Speaker, I am not here to tell you that everything is going to be, by the wave of a magic wand, all your roads are going to be fixed overnight. We have 25,000 kilometers of roads. And over the last 50 years, we have maintained them. For the first time, we have put in place a program to do so. And we have done it transparently, consultatively, and we have done it with fiscal responsibility. So I want to give not the dream, but the vision commitment to the people of Jamaica, that we are going to deal with your bad roads. This is the only government, the first government to have put in place a project feasibly to do it. So we are giving you these updates now so that everybody can understand where we are. We are going through the process. We have now negotiated price, and the public will be informed on a regular basis as to each step. I'm very eager myself to break ground for the first road, and I'm giving myself the target that it must be before the end of this year. It must be in this quarter. Minister, make it happen. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members.
Member from Manchester Northwestern.
Prime Minister, please control the minister behind you.
Mr. Speaker, we on this side, and I'm sure the country as a whole is happy to hear the update from the Prime Minister on the Spark program and the REACH program. But I find, Mr. Speaker, that we use the word transformational very loosely. We use it at every you spoke earlier and I did not disturb you. Good, sir. We use it at every whim of being transformational, that Spark is going to be transformational. But the truth is that Spark is really a program that is playing catch up for the lack of proper road maintenance and a proper national road developmental plan. And I keep speaking about it, Prime Minister, because it is not going to be sustainable for us to keep taking $20 billion a year from out of the budget to play catch up with the road conditions that we have. The NWA assessment coming out of Beryl was about $40 billion. We're spending about $20 billion on the Spark. Reach is an additional $3 billion. What is needed on the 25,000 kilometers of road that the NWA, that the municipal council has, and the 5,000 kilometers of road, 30,000 kilometers of road, this is a start, but we need something more than just a band-aid approach to how it is that we do. It is, and I'm not in an argument with you, because a lot of you, the hypocrisy over there is really something that you can't help yourself. Yeah? You can't help yourself. So, can't help yourself. And why I say why Prime Minister is that year after year we've been talking about we have $3 billion in the budget. Yes, I see we're in the supplementary budget, even contractors in the mid-P, we are now dealing with some of those. There are contractors out there that have been complaining about not being paid. We are playing catch up with what we are playing catch up in expenses with the National Works Agency. And, you know, it is a step in the right direction. I'm not killing the Spark program. It's a step in the right direction. But I'm still asking, where is that national plan? You yourself promised a national plan on the drains that we have island-wide. We have not yet seen that report that you have promised that would have been brought to the House. Where's that national plan? Because each time we come with an acronym, the Spark, the Reach not sparking and Spark not reaching. We're still not there on what is the long game. What is the long game when it comes to road maintenance? I've made the suggestion over and over, the consideration of a road maintenance fund. It has been shut down. What is the long game? What is the national plan for road maintenance in the country? Because the truth be told is that as much as Spark is a start, yes, 150 million per constituency is about 5 kilometers of road, right? You know, you are telling me something different. 5 kilometers of road. Are we going to have that year after year after year? What is the national plan? Prime Minister, in your statement, you say one contractor has been engaged as a preferred bidder. Is it possible?
Mr. Speaker, the member's time expired. I move that it be given 5 minutes to complete the presentation.
The request is for an additional 5 minutes for the member. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Member, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members. To pick up where I left off, in your statement, you spoke about one contractor has emerged as a preferred bidder for all 4 packages? Is it possible to know who that contractor is and who it is that you're negotiating with? Because to say that you have asked the contractor, the bids came in at a certain price, and you have renegotiated, are we still expecting to see the same amount of work or a reduced scope of work? Is the question. Also, it's a little bit concerning because the negotiations, I would imagine, is different from the Mid-P and the Southern Coastal Highway, where there was a negotiated margin with the contractor and a negotiated term to engage local contractors. It is obvious that this is not the same that in this Spark program. You said, in your own words, and is expected to engage several local contractors, but obviously there's no guarantee of that local contractors will be engaged. So if the main contractor decides to take on all the work themselves, bring in their workmen, bring in their equipment, or probably lease some equipment, it is a possibility, right? But there's no guarantee that a large number of local contractors will be engaged by what I see in this. And we have to, as much as you say that it is important to know that the selection of these subcontractors, you said it yourself, made by the main contractor. Prime Minister, for a very long time, and I said it in one of my sectoral presentations, our grade 1 contractors have become subcontractors for foreign contractors. They have. If we are really going to build an industry, construction industry, we can't just, we have to engage our grade 1 contractors. It is how we facilitate them, just as we facilitate the foreign contractors, where equipments are concerned. And we keep on going down the road that right now, most of our contractors are unable, because even though it was an international competitive bidding process, what was required of our local contractors, there's not one local contractor that could step up to it. Even if they came as a consortium, would not have been able to step up to it. So, you know, we want to see more and more of these programs, yes, but more and more of our local contractors being engaged as and facilitated as main contractors. Prime Minister, the matter of reach, it is timely because of what has happened during the hurricane and seeing the conditions of our roads. I can say that from this side, we are happy that we are able to use this sum of money on community roads, because those are the ones that are really, really in need of the procurement process. Prime Minister, is one that we hope that is efficient. Yeah, I hear you say that you want the Spark to start before the end of the year. We are hoping that REACH will be able to start before the Christmas comes in, and that we can. It has not started. Well, if it has started, no. If it has started for the MPs on that side, it has not started for any MP on this side. I'm just saying, if the REACH program for each member of constituency, if it has started for MPs on that side, it has not started for any MP on this side. So if that is so, we are even more concerned if that is the case, right? Prime Minister, seeing that the members, the issue of the hurricane and everything, drain cleaning, I commend the program, the drain cleaning program, that was the approach to the drain cleaning program after the hurricane. But that national plan for drains is really needed right now. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
To clarify several issues raised by the member from Northwest Manchester. The drainage study that we had committed is part of the Montego Bay Perimeter Road works. In fact, it is going to be funded from that, and it is included, but that is for the northwestern end of the island. We did make a commitment based upon certain flooding activities that took place on the Mandela Highway, Marcus Garvey Drive, that affected the constituencies of Western, St. Andrew, Southwest, indeed my own constituency, that there needs to be a drainage study in this area. That is certainly being looked at by the NWA. Now, in terms of the REACH program, there are two components to it. One is the MP-driven component, which I'm appealing to the MPs that if you get your projects in on time, this will help with the quick deployment. But there is also an NWA-led element of $600 million of patching, which they have started. So that is what we mean when we say that the REACH program has started. In terms of the contracting process for the Spark program, now we are still in the procurement phase. We wanted to just inform the nation that there is a preferred bidder and that we have successfully negotiated with the bidder. We have not yet completed everything in that phase, and as soon as the phase is finalized, the public will be made aware of the detail as to who is the contractor and what is the negotiated sum. I can say, however, that the negotiated sum is considerably lower than what the bid offers came in at. And it is something that as a government we have to look at, what we put out versus what we get back from the various bidders.
Transform your company into a great place to work. Get started at surveymonkey.com/employee-love.
Hey, small business owners, your company may need to file its beneficial ownership information with the federal government.
What the international bidders say. The member from Northwest Manchester makes the valid point that we should invest in our local contracting capacity. And I want to make it absolutely clear that the government supports our local contractors. And that is why it is a requirement of the Spark contract that local contractors must be used to execute the work. It is something that we have to acknowledge, however, that we do not yet have enterprise scale contractors, but we would like to see those develop. And the more projects like these that the government puts in place, particularly when we are funding it and we can determine how the funding is used to support our local contractors, I have no doubt that from these exercises in roadworks, that we will have one or two enterprise level contractors who would be able to compete on an international scale. No question. Indeed, we now have contractors who are doing major works in other countries in the Caribbean. I know, for example, in the Bahamas, in Cayman, and in Guyana, our contractors are there. But the challenge with the enterprise scale kind of works is the requirement for bonds and other forms of insurance to protect the works, and the requirement for large retinues of technical and engineering personnel, which some of our firms just don't have at the scale and scope, but they are growing and they are developing in competence. So we will continue to do these kinds of large projects, and our contractors will get the experience. And I'm certain that we will have enterprise level contractors in short order. Your other question, member, if you remind me, I think I've dealt with all the issues. I think I've dealt with all the issues.
Just raise one clarification, Prime Minister, because the the drainage plan. It was about 3 years ago. You spoke about the commissioning of a survey, and I mean I took the time while you were speaking to go to the Jamaica House website. That a master drainage plan has been completed for the entire island, September 16, 2019. That is the plan that I speak of, not the one for the Montego, because that when we spoke of it, it was no, exactly. It was done some time ago. So, and I'm asking if we can see if that can be tabled as a green paper in the House itself, so that we can, and the plans for that for your government and the national workstations and how it is that we rehabilitate those.
You know, drainage plans are not secret documents. So if the member requires, I will ask the Minister without portfolio to ensure that those documents are tabled or sent to him directly. The member keeps making a point, which is not a valid point. The point the member tries to make is that there is no plan for the redevelopment and rehabilitation and management of our roads. In a sense, there has been no plan. The Spark program is the start of a new way of managing our roads. Mr. Speaker, we never had a complete register of all our roads. Democracy now for over 70 years, and we don't have a register of all our roads. As a result of the Spark program, we have now established a register, not just name and designation, but we know we have now geospatially mapped all our roads, and I am now given the latest update. We are at 27,000 kilometers of roads, because it's an ongoing exercise that we map and have all the geographic features of all our roads. Step number one. Step number two is to have all the roads on an engineered maintenance schedule. So we know what is the useful life of this road, when will it require maintenance, and the fiscal budget to match that. And that's what we're doing. So it is not true or fair for the member to suggest that this administration has not taken an instrumental approach to the management of our roads. The truth is that in the last 50 years, Mr. Speaker, it is this administration that has been systematic, deliberate, and instrumental in developing a plan, not a dream, but a real vision for improving the quality of our road network.
Member from St. Andrew Western.
Prime Minister, Prime Minister, Prime Minister, I understand and I hear the response about the studies for the drain. I'm just hoping that with this funding that has come about through the securitization, that the Sandy Gully will be addressing the emergency aspects of it, at least at a minimum, the very emergency aspect of it.
For pleadings regarding the Sandy Gully, which I also share the concern, but I can't plead to myself, they will be addressed. The NWA has been tasked to work on a comprehensive plan, and we are going to do something significant on the Sandy Gully. It is not, so, Mr. Speaker, just to be clear, the Sandy Gully is an emergency because of the communities that have sprung up along the Sandy Gully, in fact, on the banks of the Sandy Gully in many instances. And the compromised inverts and walls could create major catastrophe. And I want the public to understand that we are seized of it. The challenge is, Mr. Speaker, the magnitude of the intervention that would be required. And so we have to plan it out very carefully. No, which is the point I'm making, that we are going to have a major intervention to rectify the areas that are most at risk. So it is being developed now as we speak. I want to give you the assurance, because it's not just your community, it's mine, it's the Minister of Finance, it's Minister Truck and member from North Central St. Andrew that are affected. So it affects many constituencies. I don't. It's not a part of this detail.
Just one very quick question, Prime Minister. I am, let me make sure it is a properly worded question. How will the payments to contractors under this spark program be compared to the regular payments through NWA? And I ask it because what has been very clear is that there are some contractors, even after 1 year of a program where funds are allocated according to what you or the ministers have said, have not gotten paid. At this point, I am personally beginning to believe that there are some contractors that are being punished.
Mr. Speaker, the member from St. Andrew South West, obviously collaborating with our colleague from Manchester Northwestern, has asked a question that I will answer very carefully. First of all, let me dispel any notion that there is any targeting or favoritism in the payment of contractors. In fact, contractors complain to me universally about the slow pace of payment coming out of the NWA, and that's no secret. Over the past few months, since I've asked Minister Morgan to look at the issues there, which would include the systems of payment and looking at the backlog of payments. The member from Northwestern mentioned that when he looked in the supplementary, he saw that there was a significant attempt by the government to address some of the backlog. The issue is, member, and we have to admit when there are issues, we should never allow the backlog to grow to the extent that it has. There are considerations. For example, if we have unexpected events such as a hurricane or heavy rains where we have to just issue the works using the respective procurement measures, and those costs are incurred, we didn't budget for them, and therefore there is a backlog. We are cognizant, however, that it is a financial impact on the contractors because their resources are tied up waiting on the government to pay, which is why we have made an allocation of, we have paid $1.8 billion since June to contractors to try and clear up outstanding amounts. I want to assure you, member, that we are doing our best and we will continue to clear the outstanding backlog. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members.
House Leader. Announcement.
Laid on the table of the House today are the following: annual report and audited financial statements of the Banana Board for the year ended December 31, 2021, and its related ministry paper numbered 74, 2024. Annual report and audited financial statements of the NMIA Airports Limited for the financial year 2020-2021. The National Housing Trust Housing Benefits Special Selection Roseneath Park Housing Development Order 2024. Jamaica Public Bodies First Supplementary Estimates of Revenue and Expenditure for the year ended March 2025. Jamaica First, supplementary estimates 2024-2025. And finally, the fiscal policy paper for the financial year 2024-2025 interim report dated October the 8th, 2024.
House Leader. Oh. Notice of motion given orally.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, I will move the following motion. Be it resolved that the National Housing Trust Housing Benefits Special Selection Roseneath Park Housing Development Order 2024 under the National Housing Trust Act, which was laid on the table of this House on the 8th day of October 2024, be referred to the Regulations Committee of the House of Representatives for consideration and report. Mr. Speaker, I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today, I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take this motion.
Minister.
Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, I'll move the following motion. Be it resolved that the first supplementary estimates of expenditure for the financial year ending 2024-2025, which was laid on the table of the House on the 8th day of October 2024, be referred to the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee of the House of Representatives for consideration and report. Madam Speaker, I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today, I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take this motion.
Public business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move for the suspension of the standing orders to allow me to take the motion, notice of which I gave earlier.
The request is on the floor. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. You may now do so.
Speaker, I beg to move that the motion be approved for the referring of the motion to the committee of the House.
The request is on the floor. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, as is customary with the tabling of the supplementary estimates.
Before you do, we have to move for the suspension of the standing order.
Mr. Speaker, I now move for the suspension of standing orders to enable me to take the motion, notice of which I gave earlier.
The request is on the floor. Those in favor? Ayes have it.
Indulgence.
Next one, the next one.
Turn it off quick. I further beg your indulgence, Mr. Speaker, as is customary, to provide a statement on the tabling of the supplementary estimates because they're very detailed, and especially in a year like this, where we have had the events unfold, which I'll speak about, it's absolutely necessary that I do so. And I have copies here that can be distributed. Mr. Speaker, the Jamaican economy had real GDP growth of 1.2% during the first quarter of calendar year 2024. That's January to March of 2024. This was followed by positive real growth of 0.2% in the second quarter of the calendar year, which was lower than expected or projected. The reduced second quarter growth rate reflects low tourism growth, arising primarily out of a travel advisory issued by the United States of America and a contraction in the seats that were available for Jamaica. In the third quarter, Mr. Speaker, of the calendar year, Jamaica experienced Hurricane Beryl, the most devastating hurricane to impact Jamaica since Hurricane Dean in 2007, 17 years ago. And it's the earliest Category 5 hurricane to hit Jamaica that we are aware of. Earliest meaning July, right? We've never had that before. The economy is therefore expected to register a decline of 2.1% in the third quarter of the calendar year, that's June to September, on account of the economic dislocation caused by the hurricane. Remember, agriculture in many crops was completely wiped out. Now, when you put these developments together, the impact of the U.S. travel advisory on the second quarter, the impact of hurricane on the third quarter, taken together, they represent a significant growth shock, which is expected, and these are PIOJ's and BOJ's figures. They're not predictions, they're projections, which is expected to result in a contraction of negative 0.2% for the fiscal year 2024-25, down from the initially expected expansion of 1.8%. Mr. Speaker, the fiscal impact of this growth shock is reflected in the supplementary estimates. The government of Jamaica, and in effect, is reflected in estimates through additional expenditures for hurricane-related matters, to support public bodies in some cases for the same reason, and also reflected in the tax revenue forecast. The government of Jamaica has been able to make adjustments and to execute transactions such as the recent securitization transaction, the first securitized, well, I'll speak about that later, that together facilitate the continued downward trajectory of the public debt ratio towards the achievement of the 60% target of GDP by 2027-2028, despite the challenges that arise from a growth shock as significant as the expected 2 percentage point deviation in the 2024-25 growth outcome. Mr. Speaker, the experience so far this year is yet another reminder of the importance of building resilience and the necessity of always having buffers and shock absorbers. This includes being ahead of your targets when the opportunity presents itself. So when we came here in March and we presented the budget and we were a year ahead of the debt target, some people criticized. But if we didn't have that, if we didn't have those buffers, if we didn't plan to execute on the securitization and overperform on it, what would happen when you have a growth adjustment of 2%? Remember, the size of the economy is 3.4 trillion. If you have a growth deviation of 2 percentage points, 2 percentage points times 3.4 trillion, you're talking about a $68 billion movement. It is a deviation like this due to no fault of our own. We had a hurricane, for heaven's sake, right? That is projected to have a 2.1% decline in the June to September quarter, and the travel advisory hit tourism, which resulted in that first quarter of the fiscal year being 0.2. Both things outside of our control. And without resilience, without buffers, without having these kinds of transactions that you're working on anyway, what would have happened is that we'd have had the Hobbesian choice of having to increase debt or suspending our flagship programs like Spark? Or are you following me? So I don't want it to be lost on us. This thing is not magic. The fact that we're going to be moving on with Spark is not magic, right? It is because of the importance of resilience and buffers. Now, Mr. Speaker, Jamaica is structurally vulnerable. It's structurally vulnerable. And this is unlikely to change anytime soon. And so we have to take responsibility for this and plan accordingly, thinking about today, but also thinking about tomorrow. And it is in this context that today I table the fiscal policy paper for 24-25, the interim report, which provides an outturn for the prior fiscal year, the performance of the first quarter, and in some areas, the first 5 months of the current financial year, projections for the current financial year, and projections for the medium term. Also being tabled today is the central government's first supplementary estimates for 2024-25 and the public body's first supplementary estimates of revenue and expenditure for the year ending March 2025, which have become necessary as a result of the impact of several factors.
We've got passion, we've got determination. And if we set our sights on something, you better believe it's happening.
We always felt like our content was all about entertainment and being fun, but there was also this, sort of professional business side. One of the things that we knew was basically essential was getting our own website, so people would actually see a proper official group who mean business and who can deliver. And we always had this vision of bringing things into existence that previously had never been seen.
This is the world's largest act.
We bounced a plane, a boat, and a car, and it was wild. So today, How Ridiculous have 50 million followers.
We're in the billions of views.
Tens of billions. That's pretty good. I don't know all the things that we're going to get to do in the next year or 5 years, but if we can do this as a job, anything's possible.
Do you know what's really fun? Making a website on Wix.
Economic developments that have occurred. The government is managing the significant growth shock to the economy through utilizing flows arising from the disaster risk financing system that we have put in place, as well as the overperformance of the bond issue associated with the securitization of the Norman Manley International Airport. These have allowed for the continued downward trajectory in Jamaica's debt to GDP ratio, while also maintaining most of the planned expenditures and also addressing the unplanned expenditures having to do with the impact of the hurricane. Given the impact of Hurricane Beryl and the altered macroeconomic profile, the central government's first supplementary estimates provide for an increase in total expenditure and payments by approximately $40.7 billion. The increased expenditure is entirely due to expenses on the recurrent side of the budget, where both debt and non-debt expenses have increased. Recurrent program expenses have increased by $31.3 billion, reflecting, among other things, the additional expenses undertaken to initiate recovery from the impact of Hurricane Beryl, and that is about $11.8 billion. Also included in the recurrent programs are additional subvention amounts to a number of public bodies, including the University of the West Indies, the University of Technology, the Jamaica Urban Transit Company, Montego Bay Metro Limited, the National Water Commission, the University Hospital of the West Indies, the Transport Authority, JACRA, the Jamaica Racing Commission, Jamaica Ultimate Tire Company, the Firearm License Authority, the Solid Waste Management Authority, and other agencies under local government ministry. Mr. Speaker, this need to step in and support these public bodies comes at a cost to the central government, and it's not sustainable over the long term. These public bodies, apart from ones where we directly made interventions, will have to organize themselves so that this is not an ongoing requirement. Recurrent programs also, Mr. Speaker, increases, just hear me out on this one, please, Some of the recurrent and program increases include provisions for the amounts related to the Spark program. So we had made the provision for Spark entirely in the contingency provision on the capital side of the budget. But as you go towards implementation, there are aspects of the Spark program that can't be placed there. They have to be placed on recurrent, i.e. pre-investment activities, preparatory activities, design activities, the ordering of pipes, NWC pipes to, as the Prime Minister said, if we're going to dig up some of those roads, we want to put pipes under the ground. And those, to facilitate those, Madam Speaker, those Spark expenditures are on the recurrent side of the budget. Wages and salaries are also increased by 11.6 billion due to higher than originally planned third-year costs on the implementation of the restructured public sector compensation system. Interest payments are estimated to be $9.6 billion greater than originally budgeted, primarily reflecting the impact of adjustments in interest rates and exchange rates. The increase in recurrent expenditure is somewhat countered by a 12.1 billion decrease in capital expenditure, which represents a decrease on the contingency provision for capital programs, given the need to accommodate spending associated with the recovery from Hurricane Beryl, as well as the preparatory activities for the Spark program, which are on the recurrent side of the budget. The additional total expenditure and payments of 40.7 billion will be financed primarily through estimated additional revenue and grant flows, primarily arising from non-tax revenues and tax revenue flows. The increased non-tax revenue flows include higher than estimated flows from the securitization of the Norman Manley International revenue flows that are due to the government. And utilization of available cash resources of 4.4 billion will provide the additional financing required. Adjustments to the public body estimates primarily arise from the need for additional subventions from the central government to a number of public bodies. Self-financing public bodies requiring the support of central government include, I had listed some of these earlier, but here I have the amounts. Transport Authority, 358 million, Firearm License Authority, 150 million, NWC, 1.5 billion, JUTC, 818 million, Jamaica Tire Company, 155 million, Jamaica Agricultural Commodities Regulatory Authority, 150 million, Jamaica Racing Commission, 150 million, Metro, Montego Bay Metro, 11.4 million. It's necessary, Mr. Speaker, to have transparency on these because these are self-financing entities that, you know, we can't sustainably provide financing for them from the taxpayer pot. Associated with the securitization of the Norman Manley International Airport, the central government facilitated the redemption of debt for the airports authorities of Jamaica in the amount of 2.4 billion, i.e. we paid down on $2.4 billion of debt. Mr. Speaker, the interim fiscal policy paper
we do apologize, but we got to break away from this. We do apologize. We got to break away from this. We do apologize about this. Thank you very much for watching.
Again, I can close where I started, that Jamaica's structural vulnerability is such that we all